like I said earlier, it felt like at the time, when Tranmere survived the Stockport away that season, and I'd had a few near misses, and survivals. It was just sort of the trajectory the club was on at that time. And like so, once that first relegation happened, when I look back, it just snowballed into the following season. A lot of the better players had moved on, and it just felt like there was no one guiding the club at the time. It was just all it was probably pretty much ran on hope, and appointments weren't right, and the investment had obviously dried up, and it wasn't a great time. And like I said, sometimes when you look back, there's not really anything you can put your finger on other than just one thing I've found in my career is when you're on good runs and you're winning games, there's not really an explanation for it. You just know you go into the next game and you'll win and you get on them runs. And pretty similarly, obviously, when you're losing games, it's very hard to stop. If you could give players confidence, you'd be a multimillionaire. It's just something that, you cannot give. It's something that's for myself, whenever I've had tough times in my career or dips in form, for me, I always just take it back to the training ground and just know, I've got the mindset of the harder you work, the luckier you'll be. So, but obviously, when you're in them runs and I just remember there was a feel around the club as well. From the terraces, it wasn't great, and there was just like I said, it was almost inevitable what was going to happen.
There was so much going on in the background as well. You've already touched upon it a little bit. Peter Johnson was trying to sell the club. It didn't happen. There was a couple of people that wanted to buy it from him, but it didn't go through. There were allegations thrown at Akpo Sodje and Ian Goodison that obviously wouldn't have been good to hear in the dressing room. Joe Thompson was diagnosed with cancer, so he gets taken out of the side. And then you've got what happens with Ronnie. And he leaves the club effectively in February. I mean, as a young player, that must have been just so much getting thrown at you that it must have been at times a little bit difficult to concentrate what was happening on the match day, or you're just desperate to concentrate on what was going on the match day, but there was so much else going on instead.
Yeah, I remember in that period as well, Matt, thinking, I'll be the one who can I took on too much. I was trying to do everything, and then, you're trying to deal with and sort out issues that they're out of your control, and then ultimately your performance ends up being affected. And I just remember it being it was a real bad period. Like you said, all those things you've just mentioned, as I've got older, and I, certainly off the back of the campaign I've just had with Wigan as well. When things aren't right off the pitch and and above, it does filter down onto the pitch. And that's not excuses, but when football clubs aren't running well, like I said, it does. It spreads through. It can spread through a club real quick, like a disease. And I think that period, like I said, on reflection, it needed a big change, and maybe obviously the relegation was needed to happen at the time to really reset, and and sort of it needed to be a new club again.
Tell us about Ronnie going and Johnny Mack replacing him.
Yeah, I mean, again, as a young lad, you just sort of rolling with what was going on, and there was, like I said, there was that much going on, and it was, Johnny Mack was always good with me, and I remember I was a young lad in a very senior dressing room. So like I said, I used to in the end just think I'd just go in and I was just hoping I played on the weekend. Like I said, there wasn't a lot I could do with the off-field issues. It was just I guess I keep saying it was just that period in the club where it just nothing felt right, and you just felt on that spiral downwards, and it's very hard to stop.
And that spiral kind of picked up a pace, didn't it, in April? I'm just looking at the results now. 2-0 defeat down at Crawley for the rearranged game that twice got postponed because of the state of their pitch. 2-0 defeat at Gillingham on Good Friday, 0-0 draw with Sheffield United on Easter Monday, then the 2-0 defeat down at Leyton Orient. You just weren't scoring goals, and that basically left you needing a win against Bradford on the final day of the season and for results to go your way to stay up, and it just didn't happen. I vividly remember your reaction at the final whistle after that Bradford game. Can you give us your kind of memories of it?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember coming off the pitch, and it obviously, very emotional time. And like I said, it was probably a build-up at the time. I think someone leant into the dugout and said something. I just snapped it. I can't even remember what he'd said, and it was just probably not even to do with the comment. It was just a build-up of what had gone on. And like I said, as a young lad, dealing with what I probably had to deal with, like I said earlier, about probably playing too much, and I took on a lot myself, took on a lot of responsibility, and probably blamed myself a lot as well. But ultimately the situation was a lot bigger than me. But to be part of a relegation for your hometown club, it's something that I've carried around me all my career, and it still doesn't sit well with me now. I never will. But like I said, there's the whole situation was probably a build-up of years of mismanagement and the club not getting sold at the right time. And like I said, when things aren't right off the pitch, it does filter down.